And that brings us to 8:30 and time for our high beam this morning. It is time to talk with the docs, plural today, as it's Doctors Tim McKnight and Mike Jakubowski. And this morning's Talk with the Docs segment is brought to you by Mako's Pharmacy at 240 East 3rd Street in downtown New Yorksville. Mako's Pharmacy, your local pharmacy with a caring and knowledgeable staff, which is focused on your health and wellness. And so we welcome both of you guys in, and traffic was okay today, so we were able to bring both in.
Yeah, we made it.
In time. So what's going on today? First of all, I guess you told me ergonomics is part of the topic. I guess we better explain a little bit what that to me, that sounds like a second-year college course. So I'm not sure. Maybe other people don't exactly know what that is.
Well, it has to do with body posture and just the repetitive nature of the posture you find yourself in each day and what you're doing with that posture that can cause muscle tension. And surprisingly or not, it's a huge source for low back pain.
Oh,
you wouldn't think sitting would do that, but it really can. It's really interesting muscle imbalances that lead to that. But there's all kinds of other problems like bursitis of the shoulder. Somebody on a computer all day and using a mouse. You can get tennis elbow even using a computer mouse if it's at the wrong angle. We can get neck problems and headaches, and so it's really pretty fascinating. And I see patients all the time coming in with headaches or these musculoskeletal problems. And the first question I have is, what are you doing most of the day?
Mm-hmm.
What's the activity look like? What are you doing repetitively? And you're on your phone all day, on your iPad all day with your head down looking at it, or playing a video game or something. So those are some of the questions I ask when I hear some of these complaints. And usually for me, when I find these issues, I have a partner down the street that can correct it. And so it's been for me a really nice team to have Dr. J as a colleague that can help me with these patients, because it's not something I can help. It's really, people can take anti-inflammatories, but the root cause of the problem has to be changed, and that's the muscle tension. That's where Dr. Jakubowski comes in.
Let me ask you before we turn it over to him a little bit. Are you seeing this become more prevalent as more people have had to work at home and maybe do the Zoom and the computer?
Yes, I think so, yeah. And but it's something for us all to be aware of before we jump to conclusions that we have migraine headaches. People say they have migraines. A lot of times they're tension headaches. In my experience, 50% of headaches are tension. And changing your body posture, changing what you're doing all day, and getting some help from the right type of provider turns it around pretty quickly.
So what do we do about that, Dr. J?
Well, and that's the thing Dr. McKnight just said is, and you mentioned is, hey, we're at home now because of this COVID thing. And we are working off laptops, and we're working off these small spaces, or we try to put our computer on the home kitchen table, and we have this horrible kitchen chair, and we have all these things that are contributing to the issue. We have bad posture, and what we call is just forward head posture. Our shoulders are rolled forward, our head is forward, and we're sitting at the kitchen table all day working at this terrible work desk that's not made for it, or we're working off of a laptop that's this little tiny area, and we're crunched into this little screen, and we're working off this laptop. Well, that just comes down to repetitive stress on the tissue. And when we get up in the morning, our tissue tolerance is very high. We can take a lot of stuff, but as we work an 8-hour day, that tissue tolerance just becomes weaker and weaker, and then injury happens. So the idea is, how do we break up that tissue repetitive stress that builds up and eventually causes injury, headaches, carpal tunnel syndrome, tendonitis, like he was mentioning, and basically is breaking up that day. They say every 45 minutes you should get up, move around, do some stretches. Don't sit at the computer for 3-4 hours at a time and then go, oh my gosh, my neck's killing me, because you're so involved with your work. You need to get up, you need to move, you need to get some stretching in, get a drink of water, do things just to break that up. Just even if it's 2-3 minutes at a time, that'll build your tissue tolerance so injury is less likely to happen.
About people that are carrying their phones around and cannot put them down? Are we getting some of that?
Absolutely.
We blame teens, but it might creep into some older people than that.
You know, I feel really bad. I get kind of, I don't know what the word is. I get a little worked up when I see someone whose head is forward. We call that kind of the grandma or grandpa's neck, right, where their head's down and they're sort of stuck with that head forward, that big hump on their neck. To me, that is just That's 50 years of head down posturing, and those muscles get tight. And once they get tight, and the bones start to shift, if you're not moving it and stretching the opposite way, opening things up, the bones will fuse, and now you're stuck with that forward posture. And I remember my grandfather, he was an engineer, and he was always working in his garage at a workbench on some project with his head down. Well, 40, 50, 60 years of that, you're going to see these postural changes, and then it changes your ability to breathe. So, what Dr. Jakubowski's talking about is so critical, and it's hard to explain this with words because really this is more of a visual picture. But if you can imagine what it looks like if you get yourself in a ball position, just pull your knees up, put your head down like you're in a ball position. It's an exaggerated posture of what it's like to be sitting at a desk working all day. Mm-hmm. And I find that tension. I get that tension. And what I'll do is I'll go back to my office. I have a big Swiss ball, and I'll put my back on that ball, and I'll let my head drop back, my arms drop back, and feel the chest stretch, feel the front of my neck stretch. And it's so important. But I even have to have massage therapy to work some of that tightness out. And you'd be surprised how tight the chest muscles get just from office work all day. So again, this is something that sometimes you can stretch through if you know how to. But I really think people need to be educated by somebody like Dr. Jakubowski. They need to be treated by him. I think we all should have chiropractic treatment 2 or 3 times a week, honestly, and probably massage therapy a couple times a week. Because if you don't, you're going to see these postural changes, and then you're going to get stuck in that posture, and it's going to be too late to change it.
You two find yourselves maybe with that tendency because you're leaning over to see patients?
I know that's a big problem in my office. I'm hunched over people all day, correcting their issues, their muscle tension. And that's when I realized, okay, I'm hunched over these people. I have this constant use of these exact same muscles day in and day out. And that's where people will be at a computer or a desk, and they're like, well, I'm just sitting at a desk. I'm not really doing anything. But you're using specific muscles to do your job. And they become over tightened, strong, and just like me hunched over people, is you have to do things to make a balance. And that's an exercise program, stretching, massage therapy, chiropractic when you do have issues to kind of correct the problem, and making the proper ergonomics or desk set up so you have less stress put on you so you can make a proper balance and not be in pain or develop some of these issues that can happen from it.
So we're talking desk and chair that could do a lot of good?
Desk, chair. And that's the important thing is if you're sitting at a desk, you want your monitor, so if you're looking straight right in front of you. You don't want to be reaching for your mouse where you're reaching over the desk to get to it. Your computer or your keyboard should be 90. Your arm should be at 90 degrees and just easy something to reach so you can type easily so you're not reaching for it. And importantly, and most people don't think about this, are your feet touching the ground when you're in your chair? Are you sitting on your foot all day and you're like, boy, my hips kill me. Having a box underneath the desk just to rest your feet on top of takes stress off your lower back. So these are all simple things. Even if you only have a laptop, they make these docking stations that you can put a laptop on and get a remote keyboard and mouse so you can turn it into a desktop. So you can just grab it and go, and it charges it while you do it. These are all things. They make these, they call Varidesk now, where you put this desk, you set up on your table, and then you can go from sitting to standing just by moving a lever. So you're adjusting your posture, you're using different muscles, so things like that don't happen.
I tell patients, especially people that are typing or at a desk all day, if you put your elbows on your hips and then your hands out on your keyboard, your shoulders are in good alignment. But as soon as the elbows come away and reach towards the desk, you're actually now activating the muscles in your shoulders and your neck. And that's when you start getting bursitis of the shoulder or neck pain. It's amazing. Just if you hold that position long enough, those muscles will tighten up. Another clue for your listeners, for all of us, is if we've been sitting a long time or driving a long time, and we get out of the car and we feel like we're kind of leaning forward and our back is stiff, and we find ourselves trying to reach back so we stand up straight, so we're not walking forward. I don't know if you can envision that. But if you do that, that's a sign that your hip flexors, the muscles in your hips that raise your knee up, that they're too tight, because as you sit all day long, those hip flexors are shortened because you're at a 45 or a 90-degree angle. And people don't realize that. And that's the challenge that I have with my musculoskeletal health. My hip flexors are really tight. And the opposite side of those muscles are the gluteal muscles, the buttocks muscles. Those get stretched, but they become stretched and relatively weak. So to correct that, you've got to strengthen the gluteal muscles and stretch the hip flexors. The best thing to do for that is some type of a walking lunge or a lunge, because if you do that right, it stretches the hip flexors and it strengthens the gluteal muscles. And that's the key exercise for me to manage my back pain. But it's sitting all day. It's amazing how the price you can pay if you sit and you don't correct that with musculoskeletal balance.
Yeah. And that's what we see in factory work too. People pull a lever all day, or they lift 30-pound bags, and yeah, you can picture that being an issue, but sitting at a desk could be just as bad.
Any other final advice? I think we get some good there with the lunges. And what can we do to not see you, Dr. Jakubowski?
Well, and that's the key is, like I said, the proper setup at home. If you're working from home now because of COVID, just don't be stuck at the at the kitchen table. Is set up your monitor so you're looking straight at it. And that's one of the biggest things. People are like, well, my monitor's just a little bit to the right. I'm only turned my head maybe 10 degrees. But again, through an 8-hour day, 5 days a week, that could cause a huge amount of problems just with neck pain, headaches, and you wouldn't think of it, but you want a nice, comfortable position. That's the key. Stretching and exercise. Find a good balance. You need to be walking, going from sitting to standing while you're working all day, or just do some stretches. And then, of course, if you have problems, is definitely get it looked at to figure out what are my imbalances, what exercises could I be doing at home. What do you need someone to talk to you about? Because they have specialists that are just in ergonomics that go to companies and say, hey, you're set up all wrong here to fix these things. And just have some knowledge to talk to you about it and how do we fix it. It sounds simple, but it can make a huge difference. And then, of course, what we do in the office chiropractically is show exercises, stretching, and then correct the problems so people can build on that at home to stay safe.
Let me add one last point. I was on a plane from Phoenix to Atlanta a couple years ago and sat next to a guy who works with NFL athletes, and we talked for 3 hours, and we talked about this. He was actually basically rehabbing their feet for different injuries, sprained ankles, stress fractures, and some really neat technology. He kept referring to a friend of his named Tom. Halfway through the flight, he's telling me this is Tom Brady, his friend, for the Patriots. And we were talking about his workout routines. Tom Brady, if he takes his shirt off, he doesn't look like a physical specimen, right? And when we talk about fitness, people think of weightlifting and cardiovascular fitness on a treadmill running. But flexibility and muscle balance, joint balance is key to this. Tom Brady does not lift weights. He does his drills, his passing drills, his running drills, but he has a chiropractor / massage therapist / athletic trainer work on him anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and a half every day after every workout. And it's all about what Dr. Jakubowski does. It's about getting the joints moving. It's about working out those tensions in the muscles and the tendons so that the joints function properly. So I'm convinced that that's why we're still seeing Tom Brady play now as he approaches 50. It's not that he's big and muscular, but his joints are balanced and they move like they're supposed to. He doesn't move like an old man because he's done the things we've been talking about.
Right. Well, very good. Hey, guys, thanks a lot. It's always good to have both of you in here, and I'll try to sit better at my job here. And Talk with the Docs this morning has been brought to you by Mako's Pharmacy, offering their customers and community free assistance with comparing and selecting a plan based on your specific prescription needs. Call Mako's Pharmacy, 740-922-5400.